Hi guys, I'm going to lead you through an example of how to use a Punnett square to do a monohybrid cross. Those are some big new words, right? A Punnett square, I'll lead you through how to do it. It's really pretty easy. A monohybrid cross is when we're looking at a single trait, mono, and in looking at what the chances are that an offspring will have a trait based on the genotypes of the parents. And so I want to look at a really important trait, tongue rolling. So people that can roll their tongue, that's a dominant trait. And so we're going to represent it with a capital R. Whereas non-rollers, that's the recessive trait. And so we'll represent that with a lowercase r. Remember, we all have two alleles for each trait. So remember, alleles are just the different forms of a trait. And so we have one that we inherited from mom, one from dad. So I can roll my tongue. So I must have at least one copy of the dominant allele. My husband also can roll his tongue, so he must have one copy of the dominant allele. Now we're not sure what the other one is because it could be dominant, it could be recessive, and the dominant's just masking the recessive if we're heterozygous. But both of us, my mom and my husband's mom, are both recessive. They cannot roll their tongue, so they both have two copies of the recessive allele. Now, since each of us got one allele from our moms, we must have both gotten a recessive allele from our moms, and we must have gotten that dominant allele from our dads. So we have to get an allele from our mom and our dad, and our moms only have the recessive alleles to give us. So we're both heterozygous for rolling our tongues. So now we want to know, will our son be able to roll his tongue? It's a very important question that all parents are very eager to find out. So the way that we're going to figure it out is we're going to do a cross. And we do that by crossing our two genotypes, my genotype and my husband's genotype, and we use what's called a Punnett square to do that. So a Punnett square, we start out just a basic square, we draw a cross in the middle so that we end up with 4 boxes, and then you take one of the genotypes, put it on the side, one of the genotypes goes on the top of the box. So we write out the genotype, big R, little r, big R, little r. And then in each box, you just combine the letters that go straight into that box. So for this box, we combine these two letters. We get big R, big R. In this box, we combine these two letters, big R, little r. Next box, we get big R, little r. In this box, we get little r, little r. Now the point of this is to show the possible outcomes if you cross these two genotypes. So the 4 possible outcomes for our son are, we could have big R, and there's one box that has that. We could have big R, little r. There are 2 boxes that come out with that genotype. We could have little r, and there's one box that has that genotype. So our genotypic ratio is 1 to 2 to 1. That's homozygous dominant. There's 1 chance of that. There's 2 chances of being heterozygous, 1 chance of being homozygous recessive. Now that's our genotypic ratio. What about phenotype? Let's get down to the important stuff, right? Can my son will he actually be able to roll his tongue? How many of these will the phenotype be tongue rolling? the homozygous dominant will, right? But then also the heterozygotes will be able to roll their tongue. So that's 3 out of the 4, or a 3-to-1 phenotypic ratio. And so if we put that into percentage, if it's 3 out of 4, you'd have a 75% chance that he would be able to roll his tongue versus a 25% chance that he couldn't. So that's just a first look at how to do a monohybrid cross using a Punnett square. We'll get lots more practice with this in class tomorrow. Have a good night.